We know that you worked on Usual Suspects back in 1995. How has your eye changed on how you see and approach production design now that we're in this modern TV, modern cinema with everything is either HD or such attention to detail? How has your perspective changed from that point until we get into current day?
But for the last 7 years, I've been working with Steven Soderbergh pretty exclusively.
Right.
And he does things. He was one of the early pioneers of digital filmmaking. He uses the Red camera, and I think he was the first person to shoot a feature-length film with a digital camera. So he's sort of at the forefront of sort of that kind of technology. And it really does make a big difference about the process of making a film and what you can do. It's actually, our crews tend to be small and very nimble. We use almost all practical or available light, except when we're on stage for some lighting. So that speeds up the process greatly. So Stephen manages to really, we can really move along. So the actors, for instance, you go to most movie sets and there's director's chairs and a video village and all that. We don't have any of that. It's because nobody gets time to sit down because we just keep moving so quickly. So there's a great energy to the thing, and a lot of actors really enjoy that process because they're not waiting hours to relight something or do something. And what for me, the challenge is that he's moving so quickly that I really have to put, I'm doing the same amount of work, only, sometimes, 3 and 4 times faster than what people normally do. If you refer to like the Knick, which had, it's a Victorian show with, we're trying to turn modern day New York into, to 1900, there's a lot that has to go on. And, so we do entire giant street scenes, and Stephen would finish that in half a day. And then we do 2 other locations after that. So it can be, for a designer, it can be quite challenging, but it's also, a wonderful way to work, and I had to learn a lot. For me, had to learn a lot more about what you could do with practical lighting, and I have a lot more control actually over the way my final product looks because I'm so much more involved in the whole thing.
Right. And is there, I don't want to say frustration, but are there those moments when you spend so much time just making sure that you fine detail something and then it only gets maybe a half a second on camera or something pans through and it's like, that was a great shot.
We can do giant events, and you're right, it can end up being just momentary. And, what I've learned and what's great is, you don't often in the film business get to work with somebody over a length of time. And now I have a pretty good understanding of Stephen likes to mix up every project we do. It's like this one is about we're working on a project now that it's kind of a heist movie, and then we'll do a Victorian drama, or then we'll do something kind of like Magic Mike, or a movie about a global pandemic. So each one is very different, and which makes it really refreshing to go to work. I'm not, definitely learning a lot of different things about different places and people, but I've also gotten to learn him, and so I now know if I put something there that tells the story, he will find it right away. It's pretty interesting. So I always try to have those kind of details. Like he'll even tell, it's not scripted in any way, but he might see a prop that really tells what that scene's about, and he'll focus in on that prop. And we might not have ever discussed it, but it was part of what was essential to doing that. And so I'll often do stuff and see, he'll walk in and he'll immediately walk over to the thing I put there and start shooting it. So that's kind of, so there's a sort of a double-sided coin to that. So yes, and I've also done giant mass evacuations in Hong Kong, and then we end up, he ends up doing the whole thing in one shot, but it was a pretty incredible shot, I have to say. So.
Yeah. Contagion was it looked amazing. I mean, all the stuff that you guys have collaborated on, even from behind the candelabra, which, looks so much different, obviously, than the Knick, with the colors and, so yeah, you guys have this great collaboration. Now, do you know when he walks on set that he's happy? Does he just have this, because he probably doesn't say much, but can you just tell about his body language even when he walks on set, he's like, this is what I was looking for?
He doesn't actually say much, and and you're right. It's more than body language. He usually when he walks onto the set, he'll land. He's always early. If you have a meeting with Steven and you're 15 minutes early, you're late. Because he's just so he's very he works very efficiently, and he'll come in, and when he's waiting for the equipment to come in, he'll stand and usually doesn't say anything, but usually that's where the main angle is going to be. So there's one time we were shooting on Contagion, and we were shooting in an empty hospital, and so I couldn't do all the hospital, and there was some kind of scene, I forget what it was, but he was there early, and he stood in this hallway, and he stood in a certain direction, and I looked at him, my eyes kind of opened wide, and he didn't even look up. I think he was looking at his phone. He didn't even look up, and he said, "You missed this angle, didn't you?" And I went, "Yes, but by the time you get the camera there, I'll have it dressed." So it's running around. But it's what's on the Knick, we had these kind of very big sets, and we were shooting in the studio, and we had multiple sets in the different stages. And he would walk by, like perhaps one of the biggest sets we had, which was the operating theater, which is this, and I had shown him sketches, and, I do talk about what it is and, plans, and he's pretty good about reading plans, but we were shooting in Dr. Thackeray's office, which was literally connected to that room, and he wouldn't go in there until the day we shot it.
Nice.
He didn't go in to look at it once. He said it spoils it for him. He gets inspiration from the environment, and which he also what makes him one of great directors is. He also, like if an actor brings something to the table during a scene, he'll adjust to play that if he thinks it's telling the story. So he wants me to sort of be on my A game, so when he walks in, he's going to be inspired to but that means I have to know what the scene's about. If I don't know what the scene's about, you can kind of tell sometimes. And so, because I haven't sold it the right way. And then, so it's interesting. It makes it fun, actually. So, my best compliment from Steven is no compliment. He just starts shooting.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned the surgical theater, going back to the Knick, which again, congratulations on the Emmy wins for that. Was there other things other than the theater, maybe in the outside perspective, that you sort of just gravitated to that sort of grounds the design aesthetic for this time period in New York? Was there a certain couple of elements along with the theater that you said this is the key elements that are going to draw us into the time? The big challenge for me is like, where is the building itself? Sometimes I get inspired just from when you're going out. You don't know exactly what you're going to find, because we did actually have a lot of locations, more than most. Like Downton Abbey, they probably go out, I don't know, 20% of the time, and we were out almost 50%, like 45%, something like that. And so I had to also deal with the fact that I was building these sets, but it also had to integrate into the world that I could adapt to be in 1900. So for the Knick, actually, it was the exterior of the hospital. The location guy I was working with, his name is Rob Stream. He's a great guy, and we get along. We have the same kind of similar vision, which really helps. And there weren't a whole lot of choices, and he took me. It was my very first day of scouting for the show, and we drove up to this outside of it's called Boys High School in Bedford-Stuyvesant and in New York, in Brooklyn. And we both got out of the car and just said, "This is it. Oh gosh, this is it." And I kind of knew what the whole TV series looked like just on the facade of this building, which was sort of, it's Romanesque, Victorian. It's got a lot. It was sort of the end of the, Gilded Age, kind of where every window is a different shape, and there's turrets, and there's lots of detail, that nobody can do anymore. Everything got, after
after when you get into when manufacturing kicked in 19 the early 1900s, everything became much more linear, and so that was a big story point in the show, was that this hospital was no longer up to date. It wasn't modern. And this building to me represented everything, the sort of chaos of the previous era. And those were some of the challenges that we were addressing in the series. And so that I just looked at it and I went, wow, that's it. Now I just have to make everything else match that. And that building is quite large. And that's when I had to call the producers and go, hold on, these sets are going to be really big. I said, I know you don't think they are, but they're really big. But it was, for me, that's what did it. I just saw it right away. As soon as I saw that school, I said, that's it. So, and fortunately, we got Rob was able to get that school to agree to, and we had to schedule of course, it was a functioning school, so we couldn't impede on them, and then we had to go back again, for the second season. So it went pretty well. It was a good experience.
Are you always in design mode? Do you find like driving down the street, you always see a building, go, that would be perfect for this, or that would be perfect for that?
Kind of, yeah. But I can still, like, friends of mine ask me usually, like, what happens when you watch a movie? Do you tear it apart as you're watching it? And I said, I try not to. I actually, honestly, if everybody's doing a good job and I get sucked into the story, I stop looking at all that stuff. I just start being part of the story, and which is great. I mean, obviously there's some things that are just stunningly beautiful, design wise, like the Danish Girl or something. It's like, oh my gosh,
Right.
but and then I pop out of it. But I try to, I'll get engaged with the story, and then I have to go back again and look. I think for me, good design is telling the story, and sometimes that could be. Sometimes it means you go to a location and you don't do a single thing because it's already perfect. Just leave it alone, But and other times you have to really jump through hoops. Steven's really into the detail as well. So, I mean, that's something he's into. He really, like Contagion is a really good example. He said to me on the beginning of Contagion was, I don't want to movie-ize any of this. I want you tell me what the real thing is. And that was a bigger job than I imagined, because it meant learning a lot about how diseases are, transmitted, and how you treat them and how you analyze them. So I had to learn a whole lot. They were calling me Mr. Science by halfway through the show. So, but he was really turned on by it, and a lot of that was helped for the Knick as well. I mean, part of it, as I think. We discussed, Steven said, I want people who were within the first 5 minutes to kind of say to themselves, thank God I wasn't born in 1900. Because it's like, so hence the very graphic surgery scenes. And we had a great, historical advisor and a medical advisor to help us recreate all that stuff. But, the reality of that is really quite chilling. So, the age of Victoriana, and so it was great to have that sort of come back again, and because that's how I started out, and now I'm doing it. I actually knew a lot going into it, which was handy, because for the Knick we didn't have a lot of time to get it ready in that very first one. So
I guess we'll see several seasons still coming for that, we hope.
Yes, not right away, but
right.
it's coming along. So Steven, as usual, mix it up. So.
Absolutely. All right, I'm sure he keeps you on your toes, and again, we appreciate your time. Thanks for being on the show, and we love you here in Dallas and all the work you guys have brought us, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Great, thank you.
Right.
Good talking to you.